looking at the offseason that the Houston Rockets just had, it's obvious that they have one thing on their mind over these next handful of years, and that's to bring home their third championship in franchise history. And to briefly recap this offseason by the Houston Rockets, they started it off with a bang before the NBA season even came to an end. On Game 7 of NBA Finals Day, the Houston Rockets, they make breaking news by making a trade for Kevin Durant, acquiring him for the Phoenix Suns, and they had to give up the number 10 overall pick in this year's draft. They had to give up Jalen Green, and they also had to give up Dillon Brooks, and in exchange they got Kevin Durant. And the ball didn't stop rolling there for the Houston Rockets. They had two big-time free agency signings that I liked a lot. They brought in Dorian Finney-Smith, bringing in another 3-and-D wing to replace the loss of Dillon Brooks. You can have, when it comes to Dorian Finney-Smith and Dillon Brooks, we can flip a coin to determine which one of those two guys are the better basketball player. So I love that they're able to go out and get another wing, or add that wing that they lost in the rotation in Dillon Brooks with a similar player in Dorian Finney-Smith. And then also they added size to their front court, more size, more rebounding to their front court, bringing in Clint Capela, who is still one of the best offensive rebounders in today's NBA, and he started his career with the Houston Rockets, made a name for himself with the Houston Rockets in that two-man game with James Harden. So they bring back Clint Capela. They also get Fred VanVleet on a more team-friendly deal. They make these moves to keep them away from that sacred apron. And last but certainly not least, they move on from Cam Whitmore, sending him to the Washington Wizards in exchange for 2 second-round draft picks. So that's a brief recap of the Houston Rockets offseason so far. And I like the moves that the Houston Rockets have made. And it's rare that you can be a team that win that many games and improve significantly. And I think they did improve significantly. And that is on paper, at least, because we haven't seen these boys play yet. And I know, in my last video I said that the Houston Rockets, they could have been making a mistake trading away Jalen Green, and that still stands true. But that doesn't mean that, I don't like this current roster that the Houston Rockets have. I think they have a really good basketball team, and right now they are a better team than last year. And when it comes to this trade, man, it stirred up a lot of conversations, and just listening to everybody, listening to the mainstream media, I thought they were talking about the wrong things, or they're kind of talking about the boring things, the repetitive things. What does this mean for Kevin Durant? How much pressure is on KD? Does KD need to win a championship with the Houston Rockets? But one thing I'm really fascinated about with these trades and these moves by the Houston Rockets is that, I think I have a pretty good idea of how it's going to make their team better, especially on the basketball court. So that's what I want to talk about with you guys today. Now, I think the biggest thing from this trade is that you get to add a player. You basically swapped out Kevin Durant. You basically swapped out Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks from Kevin Durant, and then also you bring in Dorian Finney-Smith to replace that wing player that you lost in Dillon Brooks. So that's why I thought this trade was so impressive, because the Houston Rockets, immediately going into next season after winning 50 games, after being second place in the far more talented and competitive Western Conference, they're able to significantly elevate their weaknesses in their roster. So that was the biggest thing I took away from this, is that the Houston Rockets was able to go out and get Kevin Durant. And I know he's 36, 37 years of age, but he doesn't rely on athleticism. He doesn't have a family, he doesn't have any kids. He said he's not really into, having a formal relationship with a woman. All he wants to do is play the game of basketball. So that love and that passion is always going to be there for Kevin Durant, and he's going to have some more great years ahead of him. When we look at LeBron James, he has set a new standard for today's NBA. As far as when a player's prime is over, as far as when a player is not as valuable as they once was in his NBA career. And we look at some of LeBron's biggest rivals and some of his biggest contemporaries, Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant. These guys are 35 plus years of age, but still playing at the highest level of the NBA. So I don't think there's no concern there. But them being able to bring in Kevin Durant, but they still get to keep this tenacious identity that they have when it comes to rebounding the basketball and playing defense. Last year, the Houston Rockets, they finished top 3 in defensive rating. They might have finished number 3 behind the Orlando Magic and the Oklahoma City Thunder, but they did have key defenders missing sometimes throughout the season, but nonetheless, next year they're still going to be a defensive powerhouse. They have Amen Thompson, who's ready to be that point of attack defender, not even just a point of attack defender. Whatever the hardest defensive situation is for the Houston Rockets on that night, that's going to be Amen Thompson's assignment. That's how good of an athlete he is, how big of a basketball IQ that he has, and how skillful of a defender he is. And by the way, he's coming off his first All-NBA defensive appearance. So they're still going to have an ace defender, even though they lost Dillon Brooks. And then they just have so many wings that can guard on the perimeter. They still have a pit bull and Fred VanVleet that can be a nuisance in the passing lanes and getting on-ball steals. And then you bring in Dorian Finney-Smith, who earned himself a damn near a max deal with the Dallas Mavericks from being a 3-and-D guy. So he's known for being a defender. You still have Jabari Smith Jr. You still have Tari Eason. So they still have defenders all over the place. So that identity isn't going to go anywhere. And then also we look at them rebounding the basketball. Now last year, the Houston Rockets were the best rebounding team in the NBA by far. They were one of the most historic offensive rebounding teams in NBA history, and now they just added Clint Capela to this front court while also bringing back Steven Adams, and they still have Alperen Sengun at that starting center spot. So they have 3 centers on this team that could easily average 10 rebounds per game given the appropriate minutes. So no matter what lineups they go with, even if they go with a small ball lineup like Jabari Smith Jr. at the 5, he's a really solid rebounder. So they're still going to be dominating the boards at a very high rate. I don't see that going anywhere. So that right there, I don't think people was talking about that enough, is that they're basically replacing Kevin Durant with Jalen Green on the offensive side of the ball, and you get to keep that same physicality. You get to keep that same identity as a very physical and a very nasty defensive team. So that was something that fascinated me. And then also, what's so scary about the Houston Rockets now is that I think they're going to be so much better on the offensive side of the ball, because that's just the type of player that Kevin Durant is. That's just the type of offense that he promotes. And we know Jalen Green, he struggled in his offense with the Houston Rockets. His playing style is more of a ball dominant. He's more of a ball dominant player, and not to say that KD is, but we've seen KD get dropped in his NBA career into different teams, different systems, where it wasn't just one guy dominating the basketball, but it was a lot of passing, a lot of flowing, a lot of cutting, a lot of playing off of each other. And that's the type of system that Ime Udoka is promoting with the Houston Rockets. It's not just one guy sticking to the ball. So that's one key thing right there, just inserting KD into this offense, a motion offense, an offense where everybody is going to touch the basketball. I think that's going to make a lot of guys around him better. And then just Kevin Durant, he's going to be adding to all of those areas that the Houston Rockets were struggling in last year when it comes to three-point shooting, when it comes to isolation, isolation scoring, when it comes to half-court offense, when it comes to playoff offense. Now they have Kevin Durant in those positions instead of an unproven Jalen Green. So this is a great thing for the Houston Rockets. So that's one thing I'm really looking at. I think KD, the gravity he's gonna create for all the guys around him, the two-man game with him and Alperen Sengun. We've seen KD play with this style of a team before. We go back to his younger days with the Oklahoma City Thunder, playing with Serge Ibaka, playing with Kendrick Perkins. Not to say that, it's 2 players like that on the Oklahoma City Thunder right now, but I'm just saying he's played in a system and been very dominant where it wasn't nothing but floor spacers around him. So I think it's going to be able to work out. Kevin Durant, Alperen Sengun, and Amen Thompson being on the court at the same time. I cannot wait to see what Amen Thompson does with a player like Kevin Durant at his disposal, a player like KD to learn from. Same thing with Alperen Sengun. He's going to have a lot more space to operate with on that low post for the Houston Rockets. So it's a lot to look forward just off the gravity and the impact of Kevin Durant alone. I'm also liking the lineups that the Houston Rockets are going to be able to form. Having Kevin Durant at your 3 spot, that's going to cause a lot of mismatch problems. And let's just say if teams do want to put their more longer 4-man on Kevin Durant instead of their 3-man, now you're going to have either a 3-man boxing out the 4 or the 5 for the Houston Rockets. And we know they love love to play those big lineups where they're going to have guys crashing the board. So Kevin Durant getting inserted into this system, having the physical defenders that he's going to have around him, the physical rebounders that he's going to have around him, I think this is going to be a match made in heaven for the Houston Rockets. My whole thing was just, Jalen Green was just so young, and I thought he had a lot of promise. But that still doesn't, deny the fact that the Houston Rockets right now with Kevin Durant, and then what they did in free agency was like the icing on top of the cake, or the cherry on top of the sundae, whatever type of dessert you guys like. But getting those two guys with Kevin Durant, the Houston Rockets, who won 50 games last year, I think they're significantly better than they were. They're going to be significantly better next season, or at least on paper it seems that way. And I'm predicting that they're going to be a damn force to be reckoned with on the basketball court. So I can't wait to see these guys play. But that's what I want to talk about with you guys today, man. The Houston Rockets, they're going to be a huge problem next season with the addition of Kevin Durant. But if you guys enjoy it, please leave a like, comment down below if you agree or disagree, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.